Um, I hope you are able to see my screen. Right. So now,
Hi, Ankit, are you not able to hear me? No.
okay. All right.
Hello.
Yeah, yeah, that's fine now. Yeah. So today is day 5. And what we are going to do today is we are going to talk about XPaths. All right. So we have studied Selenium commands, basic commands, driver.find element and all. All right. So now we have seen, like in the last class, I made this Selenium script. Okay, wherein we could dynamically launch the browser, go to a website, right? But after going to the website, we were interacting with the elements as well. But we had seen the strategy that we could identify the element with ID or the name. Now, not every element on a web page will have an ID or a name. All right. So you have got a different locator strategies for them. Right. If I go to selenium.dev, this website, and I look at the downloads section, right, and I open the documentation and not the GitHub, API docs. So if you look at the by class again, which had the mechanisms to locate the elements within a document. Okay, basically it tells you with which mechanism you can extract the element. Right. So if you scroll down, you will see ID is there, name is there. We can also identify the elements if it's a link. We can use link text as well. Okay, but there are mechanisms like you will see over here a CSS selector or XPath. All right. So let's talk about XPath first. We'll also talk about CSS selector. Fine. So XPath, every element on a web page has an XPath. Okay. The XPath uniquely identifies the element. Okay, it's something like the address, like you have an address. Okay, so that address uniquely identifies you. And similarly, every element on a web page has an XPath which uniquely identifies the element. All right. And I'll make a new file over here. There are two types of XPaths. Okay, one is absolute XPath and one is a partial XPath. There is also something known as a custom XPath. We'll see later on. Right. Now, suppose if you go to this website and this is the image, rediff.com image is there. Right, it's nothing but a span tag. Okay, so if you want to build an XPath for this image, suppose if you want to click on this image or whatever it is, right? Or if you want to identify it, there is no ID with it. Okay, So what we do is that we go to in the source, we go to the root of the page source. The root starts with HTML. Okay, HTML. Right. Then inside the HTML tag, you have got two tags, head tag and body tag. Okay, you want to go inside the body tag because um, the HTML, this span tag somewhere lies inside the body tag. Right. So inside the body tag, you will have to go like slash body. Then inside the body tag, there are different tags, input tag, style, div, parallel division tags. You want to go inside this division tag, which is the second division tag. Okay, so you write like this div bracket 2. That means you want to go inside the second division tag. Inside the second division tag, you want to go inside the immediate division tag again. Right. So slash div. And under this, there are three division tags. You want to go inside the first one. Right. So you can write div bracket 1. If you don't write one, then by default it will go in the first, right? So, but to mention it exclusively is a good practice. And under that, there is the span tag. So this becomes your complete XPath or absolute XPath or complete XPath. You can copy this and you can also test it out in this inspector. You hit Control F. Control F. When you hit Control F, you will see a small text field will come at the bottom. Okay. And out here, you can paste your XPath and the element will be highlighted. You see the element is highlighting in the code and on the page at both the places. Okay, so now and out here, you don't need to, calculate the complete XPath the way I did. This was just for your experience. You can right click on the element and you can go to the option copy full XPath. So this will give you see the complete XPath, right? So like even if you are say on the login page or something, right? This is an input text box. You can copy the full XPath for the login page username field. So this is the full XPath, and if you want to write the code to log in into this, so you can make a new class known as a Rediff and just copying the code over here. You go to this URL and then you give the command driver dot find element by the XPath and you can provide the full XPath. Oh, sorry. Be the full export. All right, and you can type something in the text field, send keys, hello. So when you run the code, you see that it goes on the web page and types hello. So you can use the full XPath. The full XPath is actually very accurate. Okay, it is very accurate because it starts from the root of the document and it ends up at the element. But we don't prefer to use this XPath because if something changes in the application, okay, if something say a new div tag is added over here, then almost, especially at the root of the document, then almost all the XPaths will change. All right. And if the XPaths change, then it creates a problem because you will have to change the almost the entire code and all everything. Almost all the XPaths will change. You'll have to recalculate. So it will become a problem. Look, you have to build scripts. You have to build scripts which are stable. Okay. I don't say that fine if the application changes, then the XPaths won't change. But it should not happen that a small change in application brings in a big change in your code. Okay, so please be careful. Right now, the partial XPath. Okay, let's talk about partial XPath. Partial XPath is something which reduces this risk. I don't say it will eliminate that. It will reduce. Partial XPath path always starts with a double slash. Okay, like double slash star. It represents all the elements on the web page. Okay, if I put this XPath out here, it'll say 1 out of 211 elements. And if you click on the down arrow, the elements will be highlighted one by one. Okay, but this is just an example, right? Now, if I put double slash, say A, so anchor tag represents a link, right? Okay, I told you all the links on the web page will have the tag name anchor tag. If I look at a link, it starts with anchor tag. Okay, so double slash A will, if I put it over here, this will represent all the anchor tags. That means all the links on the web pages. Okay, there are around 30 links over here. Right. So, uh, like for example, if you look at this username field, right, if I right click on it and if I say copy XPath instead of full XPath, I would say copy XPath. That means I want to copy the partial XPath, not the full XPath. So the partial XPath would be copied and you will get an XPath like this. This basically means double slash star. That means all the elements on the web page. Okay. And out of all the elements on the web page, give me the element whose ID is user email. So this is the filter which has been applied. Okay, you can replace these double quotes with single quotes as well. Or to be more specific, instead of star, you can put the tag name of the element. This is the tag name input for the username field. So I can write a double slash input tools. That means out of all the input tags on the web page, give me the input tag whose email is user email. So you can also use this XPath, which is the partial XPath. Hold on. Yeah. So you can use the partial XPath over here. Right. And now if you run this code, you see that it types in hello. All right. Okay. If you have any questions, please, you can let me know. Right. Now, if you like, say, if I go to any other website like bbc.com and inspect an element, say, if I inspect this element, and if I copy the partial XPath of this element, then I get a partial XPath like this. Okay, this is a link anchor tag. It's got no ID. Okay, so it jumps over to one tag above, which is h3. So this h3 tag has also got no ID. So it jumps to the one tag above, which is div, and it keeps on doing so till the time it finds an element with an ID somewhere in between. Hold on. Um, div with ID. So it finds this element. Yeah, this element it finds, and it traverses down, okay, to the tag name, like from this particular div tag. So anchor tag was having no ID. So it found the nearest element with an ID and built the XPath from there. Okay, if I would have made the complete XPath, the complete XPath would have been like this. So it hardly made a difference, but fine, it's okay. That's the way it works, right? So you cannot eliminate the risk, but you can reduce the risk. That's the only thing. That even if the application changes the XPath, the probability of changing the XPath, it reduces. Right. That's why, it's easy to automate a website which has got IDs and names, and we tell the developers that please give the IDs and the names to the elements. Right. Anybody with any questions? Anything? Any questions from anyone? Right. Now I will remove this and now once you have, hold on, like say this Irrediff website, people looking at it, right? If I look at the link Rediff money or this link forgot password. Okay, if I copy the partial XPath for this, then what I get is something like this. So same way, this anchor tag was not having any ID. So it jumped to one above tag, which is div tag. This was also not having any ID. But the element above the div tag, which is div, it has the ID password div, pass div. So it started building the partial XPath from here. Okay. If I look at the Rediff money-wise image, this is the image. And if you copy the XPath for this image, not the full XPath, but the partial XPath, then what you get is you get something like this. Again, it started with this ID. Right. So it will always find the element, right? The nearest element with an ID, and it will start building the XPath. All right, fine. So I am not having an example with me, but what if it doesn't find the element? Okay, suppose if I go and look at this rediff.com image, this small link is there, right? Rediff.com link. If I look at this link, right, if there was no ID, this is a division with the tag ID. But if the ID was not there, it will keep on traversing, and if till the HTML tag if it doesn't get the ID, then by default it in the partial XPath also it will give you the complete XPath. Okay, so this inspector tries to find the element, nearest element with an ID, but if it is failing to find the nearest element with an ID, it will send you back the complete XPath. Okay, right.
Ashish, I have doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah, in which situation we have to prefer the complete XPath?
Look, at times when things are not working, you can try to use the complete XPath as well.
Is there
Okay,
any
but
specific thing
no, there is
or
no, till date, I have not found any specific thing. I have never used complete XPaths. Okay, but they do exist. Okay, there was just one time that way back, 4 years back, something was not working with the normal XPath. So I used the complete one, it started working. So, but that time Selenium was also unstable. Okay, now Selenium is stable, it works fine. Correct.
oh,
Yeah. Now this is about complete XPaths and partial XPaths. I had also told you about implicit wait, this line. Again, I'll repeat, writing this line is very important. It is applicable to all the driver.find element commands in your program. And wherever something is not working, right, this command will make Selenium script stop and give it some time to find the element. Okay, so we have seen basic thing that how you can use XPath, how you can launch the browser dynamically, how you can give the implicit weight, how you can uh, put the driver exe paths and all. Okay. Now, moving ahead, I'm going to create or let me tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to come back to Java. Okay, because before I move ahead, I need to tell you about few concepts in Java which are important. One is the concept of constructors. One is the concept of exception handling. And then you have got inheritance. So let me talk about these concepts. Okay, then we'll start using them as well. Okay, so let me go back to Java a little bit. Right. So suppose starting off with constructors. Suppose if I make a new class known as house. Okay. Now house class can have a property like the number of the house, the street one. Okay, the pin, right. Then you can have the city. So you can have a complete address class, which the house address, which is like the number, house number, street one, street two, pin, city. Right. And suppose if I make a new class, known as test house. Okay, I did not make the main. Hold on. Test house with the main function. Right. So over here, if I create the object of house and initialize it, house dot number is some house number, house dot street one is street A. Okay, let this be integer and house dot street two is street B and house dot pin is some number and house dot city is. So to initialize this one house object, I have to write 5 lines of code. Okay, so you can avoid this, right? Because if I create one more object, say h1 with some different parameters, right? So for every object I'm creating, I have to specifically initialize it, right? Now, what if the house over here, instead of these 5 parameters, there were, suppose there are 20 parameters. So I will have to write 20 initialization lines over here. To initialize every object, I will have to write 20 lines. So this doesn't make sense. And that is why we use in Java constructors. Constructors are used to initialize the object. Okay. How? Well, first of all, I'll make a constructor in this house class. You make a constructor like this, public house. Okay, so this looks like a function, but it's not a function. It's got no return type. It's not returning void or integer or anything, right? So a simple public and the name of the class. The constructor name has to be same as the name of the class. And inside it, I will just print inside constructor. All right. So when I will run this code, test house, you will see inside constructor is printed 2 times. Whenever you create the object of the class, the constructor is called. I created 2 objects, so 2 times this constructor was called and 2 times it's printing inside constructor. Okay, I can create more objects of this class. If I create more objects, you will see inside constructor will be printed more times. Right? Okay. So constructor is something which is called when the object is created. Now I can make one more constructor of this class, which takes in different parameters like the house number, the street 1, street 2, pin code, and city. So this constructor was not taking anything, but this constructor is taking few parameters. All right. So when you create the object of the house, now you can send those parameters. House number, the street at 1, street 2, the pin code, and the name of the city. Right. So you can send these 5 parameters. Instrument, hold on.
Save it.
Right, save. I haven't saved it. So you can send over these 5 parameters. Right. So these will go in the respective variables. And you can initialize your global variable. You can write number equals to n, street 1 equals to s1, street 2 s2, pin equals to p, and city equals to c. So this way, the global object variables will be initialized to the values which you send over here. And you can test it. If I write over here h2 dot say city, so it will print the city. When you run this, okay. So as soon as the constructor is called, okay, when you create the object, the constructor will be called, and at the same time, it will initialize the values of the object as well. Right. Similarly, you can create as many objects you want with some different values. Okay. You can give any value, any object. So I don't have to write these unnecessary lines, first of all, and my object gets initialized in one go. Okay, so the constructor, the basic work of constructor is to initialize the object. We will do this in framework. In regular classes, we will not be using constructors, but when we do frameworks, we will be using constructors over there. Okay, now suppose, look, these are the 5 input parameters. If I give the name of the input parameter same as the global variable name, okay, number, street 1, street 2. If I write a code like this, and after initializing the object over here, suppose I am printing the city, the h2 dot number, and if I run this code, it will print 0 and null. Okay, the global variables are not initialized. It's just printing the default values. Look, when you write number equals to number, it's also giving you a warning. This has got no effect. The local variable hides the global variable. It is like the local variable equals to the local variable itself. Okay, so you need to use this keyword in this case. You need to write this dot number, this dot street. This represents the current object. When you write this dot number, that means the global variable this. Okay, the global variable of the object. Okay, this dot number is actually this number. Okay, the object's value is equal to number, which is the local number. So this keyword is a reserved keyword in Java, and it always points towards the object. Okay, the number in the object is equal to the number which you are sending in the local variable. Okay, so when you run this code, you see it prints the correct value now, not 0, not null. Okay. Anyone with any questions in this?
No.
Okay. I hope you are able to understand. Right. So the basic thing is the constructor. It helps you to initialize the object. And in the constructor, generally we keep the local variable name same only. So we use this keyword. Right. Now another concept which I told you I wanted to take was the concept of, or rather is the concept of exception handling. That's how in Java we go and manage exceptions. Okay, exception is an undesired um, situation in which you want to be. Okay, so like for example, if I write a code system.out.println a and then int I equals to 50 divided by 10 and print b. So if I run the code, it prints a and b, right? And If I write 50 divided by, say, 0. So obviously something divided by 0 doesn't make any sense, right? And when you run this, it gives you an exception known as arithmetic exception. And it also gives you the line number in which this exception is taking place. So whenever you get an exception, don't panic. Look at the stack trace. This is known as the stack trace. Arithmetic exception, that means it's something to do with the mathematics. Okay, divided by 0 exception. And it is on line number 6. Okay. In normal scripts as well, suppose I was writing this script. Okay. And suppose this rediff script and give, if I give an XPath, ID is I put an XPath which is not valid, right? And if I run this code, first of all, it will not throw an exception immediately. It will wait for 20 seconds. It will keep on polling the page for 20 seconds, right? Because of implicit wait, right? And after 20 seconds, you will get no such element exception. That means there is no element with this XPath. So it will tell you that you are trying to know such element and you are trying to locate the element with this XPath, and this is the trace in which it will tell you very clearly rediff.java line number 31. Okay, if you click on the link, the line will also get highlighted. So when the exception comes up, you get to know entirely from the trace that what actually happened. All right, and in Selenium, there are different exceptions, like no such element is there, or element not interactable exception is there, right? There are different exceptions. We will look into those, right? Now coming over to this program. Okay, suppose I want to recover from this exception, right? I don't want to just stop the program because if the exception comes, you will see only A will get printed. Okay, only A gets printed. B never got printed, right? The program stops on this particular line. So what we do is we give the entire code inside. Many of you must be knowing this, inside a try catch block. Okay, so if inside the try block, the error comes up or exception comes up, the control goes inside the catch block. The catch block is passed an object of exception. It is automatically passed. Right, inside the catch block, if I write C, and then if I write over here D. So if you run this now, see it will print, it's printing A, C, D. So on this line, the exception comes up. If the exception comes up, the control jumps inside the catch block. See, B is not printing. ACD is printing. In the try block, if some exception comes up, the control comes in the catch block. The remaining lines in the try block are not executed. If I would have written 50 divided by 2, it would have simply printed A, B, D. It's not printing C. It's not going inside the catch block. It's going regularly. But it's not stopping the program. The best part is if the exception is coming, it's not stopping the program. And if you are running it, it's running. So when you in Selenium, if you reach the catch block, you can say report the bug or something, right? And uh, this is the exception object which is passed over. If I write e dot print stack trace, this command, what it does is in exception handling, it will print the entire stack trace, which you can actually read from the console. Okay, that it's a arithmetic exception on line number 7. So you can put your code inside try catch block. Look, practically speaking, not everything can be kept in a try catch block. Because if you have so many test cases, so many functionalities, you just can't put try catch block everywhere inside every function. So there are ways to tackle that as well. But yes, what try catch block does is it gives you a safe area that even if something critical happens, the program crashes, right? The uh, it will not terminate the thing. Okay, it will keep on continuing and running and producing the output. Okay, but the only thing is the line on which the exception comes up, the control after that line goes in the catch block, and the remaining lines are not printed. Okay, so I told you about XPaths. First of all, two types of XPaths, complete and partial. We saw how to calculate them from Chrome Inspector. And I also talked about exception handling. And I also talked about um, constructors. Yeah, sorry, it went out of my mind. Right, we saw the house class. Now, another important thing in Java to learn is inheritance. And we will be using inheritance in the entire training, that how one class acquires the features of other class. Right. Look, whenever I'm writing a code initially, you see that this code to launch the browser and go to a certain website, I have to write it again and again in every class which I am having. So this can be avoided. Okay, and we can avoid this with the concept of inheritance in Java. Okay, how the concept of constructors will be used in Selenium? I cannot take that right now. I'll take that in the framework. Exception handling you will keep on seeing in between, right? But the immediate application of this uh, concept inheritance we are going to do. That is, we are going to remove writing the code to launch the browser again and again in every class we create. Okay. So inheritance, I don't want to start with it right now. It's going to take a little time. Rather, I will give you exercises. Guys, the video is remaining from the last class. I'll send it across to you today. There was some PC problem yesterday. It took my entire day to fix it. Right, it was not working. I had to install antivirus and I don't know what had happened. Okay. So please excuse me for this, right? I'll send both the recordings today and uh, hold on. Just a minute, guys. All right, I'm sharing my screen.